Good evening. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. Welcome to our Light of Unity Festival as we celebrate the 200th birthday of the prophet and founder of the Baha'i faith, Bahá'u'lláh. This is a short presentation, about 20 minutes, and we'll have time for questions afterwards. We would like to ask that you hold your questions until the end of the program. We'll start our program with a prayer, and after that there will be a short history of the Baha'i faith in Rochester, followed by information on the basic principles of the Baha'i faith. We'll then review Baha'u'llah's life, and there'll be time for questions at the end of the program. We'll start the presentation with an opening prayer.
This is a prayer for mankind. O thou compassionate Lord, thou who art generous and able, we are servants of thine, sheltered beneath thy providence. Cast thy glance of favor upon us. Give light to our eyes, hearing to our ears, and understanding and love to our hearts. Render our souls joyous and happy through thy glad tidings. O Lord, point out to us the pathway of thy kingdom, and resuscitate all of us through the breaths of thy Holy Spirit. Bestow upon us life everlasting, and confer never-ending honor. Unify mankind, and illumine the world of humanity. May we all follow thy pathway, long for thy good pleasure, and seek the mysteries of thy kingdom. O God, unite us and connect our hearts with thy indissoluble bond. Verily, thou art the kind one, thou art the Almighty.
This is a quote from Baha'u'lláh. The utterance of God is a lamp, whose light is these words: Ye are the fruits of one tree and the leaves of one branch. Deal ye one with another with the utmost love and harmony, with friendliness and fellowship. He who is the day star of truth beareth me witness. So powerful is the light of unity that it can illuminate the whole earth. Our next speaker is Richard Klon, Chair of the Local Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Rochester.
The Local Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Rochester wishes a warm welcome to all of you attending the celebration of the 200th anniversary of the birth of Baha'u'lláh. This slide represents a few members of the local Baha'i community in southeast Minnesota. The Universal House of Justice, which is our elected worldwide body that governs the faith, has said, as every follower of Baha'u'lláh knows well, humanity's ultimate well-being is dependent upon its differences being transcended and its unity firmly established. Every contribution Baha'is make to the life of their society is aimed at fostering unity, and every community building endeavor is directed towards the same end. Thank you for joining us along with over 5 million Baha'is from around the world in celebrating the 200th anniversary of the birth of Baha'u'lláh, the founder of the Baha'i faith. The first Baha'is came to Rochester in 1948. The Local Spiritual Assembly of Rochester was formed in 1960, and a few years later, in 1963, the Local Spiritual Assembly of Olmsted County was formed. As you see, we've been a member of this community for a long, long time. Over the years, we've had summer schools held in the southeastern Minnesota area with both national and international members of our faith attending. We've also held many state and regional conventions in Rochester. The Baha'is of Rochester have been longtime supporters of the oneness of mankind. We have participated in many community activities that have promoted the oneness of mankind, the equality of men and women, and the education of children. We have weekly ongoing classes for children, youth, and adults that promote spiritual values and virtues. I'd like to introduce Arvin Armando.
Thanks, Rich. The Baha'is believe the crucial need facing humanity is to find a unifying vision of the future of society and of the nature and purpose of life. Such a vision unfolds in the writings of Bahá'u'lláh. All these principles follow the theme of Baha'u'llah's teachings of unity, the oneness of God, the oneness of humanity, and elimination of prejudice of all kinds, equality of men and women, the independent investigation of the truth, the common foundation of all religions, the essential harmony of science and religion, the elimination of extremes of wealth and poverty, and the universal compulsory education, and as well progressive revelation, which we'll cover next, might be a new term. So throughout history, God has sent to humanity a series of divine educators, known as manifestations of God, whose teachings have provided the basis of the advancement of civilization. These manifestations have included Abraham, Krishna, Zoroaster, Moses, Buddha, Jesus, and Muhammad. Baha'u'lláh and the Bab are the latest of these messengers, explaining that the religions of the world come from the same source and are in essence successive chapters of one religion from God. So the manifestations of this day that we believe as Baha'is are the Bab and Bahá'u'lláh. And we're here today to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the birth of Bahá'u'lláh. And I'd like to just introduce again Richard Kwan.
In the early 19th century was a period of great messianic expectations in many lands. In the 1800s, Christian groups like the Millerites in the U.S., who later became the Seventh-day Adventists, the Shakers in England, were looking for the return of Christ. The German Templars established a colony at the foot of Mount Carmel in Haifa, Israel, hoping to hasten the return of Christ. Many Christians believed that the scriptures had evidence supporting their conviction that history had ended and the return of Jesus Christ was at hand. Likewise, in the Middle East, the belief that the fulfillment of various prophecies in the Quran and Islamic traditions were imminent. Deeply disturbed by its implications of scientific inquiry and industrialization, earnest believers from many religious backgrounds turned to the scriptures of their faith for an understanding of the accelerating process of change. So what was it like in 1817 when Baha'u'lláh was born? Well, the United States was about 40 years old. Slavery had been a worldwide institution for thousands of years, and virtually no one in the world thought this institution would go away. Serfdom in its various forms was still alive in the world. Colonialism was at its height during the early part of the 19th century. In the early 1800s, wives were property and had no legal existence of their own. They could not enter into contracts, nor write wills. They had no legal recourse against cruel and violent husbands. Looking north onto the shore of the Caspian Sea and nestled against the protective rocky peaks to the south lies a small village of Takur, Iran. This village is the ancestral home of one of the most ancient, wealthy, and renowned families of Nur. A family honored by its descent from Abraham, Zoroaster, and the ancient prophets, and through the last Zoroastrian king of Persia. Into this family, Bahá'u'lláh was born 200 years ago, in Tehran, Iran. Although raised in a very wealthy family, early in his life, all of his wealth would be taken away. He would be imprisoned and tortured. Bahá'u'lláh as a child displayed purity of character, quite extraordinary, and a wonderful innate wisdom and knowledge. He greatly loved the outdoor life and spent most of his time in the garden or fields. It's messianic, I finally figured it out. At age 22, his father died. He was offered a ministerial post in the court of the Shah. He declined that prominent position. His interest was in defending the poor and needy instead of pursuing a life of power and leisure. He devoted his energies to charity and acts of science. He became the father of the poor. He accepted the religion of the Bab after he heard the Bab's message. He spent all of his energy promoting the acceptance of the religion of the Bab. The Bab was a herald of the coming manifestation of Bahá'u'lláh. In 1852, Bahá'u'lláh was stripped of his wealth, arrested, tortured, and imprisoned in the Black Pit in Tehran, Iran. Thus began a life of imprisonment and banishment for the next 40 years. Bahá'u'lláh spent 4 months in the Black Pit, bound in chains, during which he contemplated the full extent of his mission. This is a quote from him. I was but a man like all others, asleep on my couch, when lo, the breezes of the All-Glorious were wafted over me and taught me the knowledge of all that hath been. He later wrote, this thing is not from me, but from the one who is the Almighty, the All-Knowing. He bade me lift my voice between earth and heaven. However, the time to publicly announce his revelation came much later. He was banished from Tehran to Baghdad to Urdine, Turkey, finally ending up in Akka, Israel, which at the time was considered the worst pest hole in the Turkish Empire. Despite these inhospitable conditions under which these exiles were forced to live, inspired verses continue to flow from Bahá'u'llah's pen, and his message reached as far away as Egypt and India. During this time, he wrote the kings and rulers of the world, urging them to pursue justice and disarmament. He exhorted them to band together into a commonwealth of nations. His core teachings for humankind are based on three onennesses: the oneness of God, the oneness of religion, and the oneness of humanity. Bahá'u'lláh died in 1892 and is buried in Akka, Israel. He was followed by his son Abdul Baha in the leadership of the faith, who was then succeeded by his grandson Shoghi Effendi. In 1963, the Baha'is held the first worldwide election held on the planet to elect the Universal House of Justice, which is now our supreme world governing body. Carolyn?
So, as Baha'is, we try to uphold a spiritual life. We individually say daily obligatory prayers and read the Baha'i writings. We have regular gatherings in people's homes every 19 days. These are called feasts and are considered to be a spiritual feast. We have 9 holy days each year which are open to the public. Today is a special holy day because it's the 200th anniversary of the birth of Baha'u'lláh. We made a special effort to extend the invitation to all of you, and we're glad you're here. We'd like you to attend our weekly Sunday devotionals if you can come. We meet at the United Way building, which is on Center Street in Rochester, just a few blocks from the Mayo Clinic and about 2 blocks from the Greek Orthodox Church there. Our next meeting is on October 29th at 10 a.m. So we're hoping you can come. As we mentioned earlier, we have classes for children, youth, and adults, and fellowship, and we also enjoy refreshments together. So, for more information tonight, we have presentations, movies. Actually, there's a movie that has come out for this event of the 200th birthday of Baha'u'lláh, and we have it running on some computers here in the library, the Plummer Library. In addition, there's materials on the table outside here and in the library, so please take a look at those after dinner if you like. And in addition, there's many web pages, and we have a Facebook page for our community. The national website is www.baha'i.org, and there's another one here about the life of another one of the central figures of the faith, Shoghi Effendi. And our Facebook page is Rochester, Minnesota Baha'is. If you would like to find us, do a search on Facebook, and we're pretty easy to find. In addition, most of the many of the books written by Baha'u'lláh and other writers in the Baha'i faith are available online for free. So you don't have to purchase a book, but there are regular books available for sale out there. I'd like to open up the floor for any questions you might have. I'm sorry we don't have a mic to pass around, but raise your hand and I'll call on you and I'll repeat the questions so that everyone can hear it. Oh, sorry. I must have skipped a page. Sorry about that. Thank you. Okay. We'd like to leave you with a final quote from the writings of Baha'u'lláh. O ye children of men, the fundamental purpose animating the faith of God and His religion is to safeguard the interests and promote the unity of the human race, and to foster the spirit of love and fellowship amongst men. Thank you. So now it's time for questions. Are there any questions from the audience? Well, there's many of us are Baha'is here, but not everyone. I would say there's at least half the folks here are not Baha'is. So please come and ask us questions one-on-one if you like, if you didn't want to pose your question in front of everyone.